String rattle and tuning stability. Both of them have been an issue with this one for a while. And there are a couple ways to handle that. One is to grab yourself your Allen wrench, Allen key, or whatever, tensioner, and get in here and torque the neck. And that way you can raise your action just a little bit, get the strings further off of the surface of the neck, and that'll cut out some of the rattle. But that doesn't necessarily solve the problems of the string stability, of the tuning stability. So here's one other thing that's to be considered. Listen. These are nines. They're a little loose, a little bendy, even for me. So one of the things you can do that might increase the tuning stability, that might increase the relief off of the neck, and may actually solve a little bit of problem of the overbend, is to put thicker strings on it, which means I have a chance to show you how to change strings. Building block basic, here we go. All right, we're about to do some musician math, which is never good math. Right now, the strings that are on this guitar are what's called nines. The high E string is a 9-gauge string, and the low E string is a 42-gauge string. If you add up all the gauges of the strings, you get 134. Musician math, let's say that's the tension that's on this neck. The strings that I'm going to put on it are 10 to 46, and they have a total value of 148. Even with bad math, that's a 10% increase on the tension of the neck, and that should lift the strings away enough to cut down on the rattle. The only tools you're going to need for this are a string winder and a pair of wire cutters, and of course a set of strings. I always start by loosening the tension on the strings first. Then it's simply a matter of cutting the strings above the nut with the wire cutters and then unwinding the small bits from the tuning pegs. There are many different types of bridges. Some have string through the body. This happens to be a top-loading bridge, which means the strings go in through the back of the bridge above the guitar body. So all you have to do is give yourself enough slack to get a hold of them and pull them out. The majority of tuning stability issues come from the nut at the top of the neck. So every time I change strings, I take a mechanical pencil and I rub graphite into the slots where the strings go, and this not only cleans them out, but helps lubricate the strings. This is important because it keeps the string from binding on its way to the tuning peg. When the string is able to easily pass through that slot, it keeps the tension between the nut and the tuning peg stable, which keeps it from continuing to pull the string through the nut and pull it out of tune. One other way to increase tuning stability is to be very careful about the way you wind the string around the peg. For example, I like to use my first wrap over the string. Now, if you ask me why I do it this way, the answer is very, very simple. This is the way I was taught. And when I asked the person that taught me to do it this way, why we did it this way, he said, the answer is very simple. This is how I was taught. I do recognize, however, that there is some sense in the rest of this as far as winding from the excess string down. As this tension increases on the peg as the winding continues, it forces the part of the string that heads towards the nut lower and lower on the peg. Now, by increasing that break angle over the nut, you maintain a more consistent tension, just like you do by putting graphite into the slots and keeping it clean. By maintaining that stability, you increase your tuning stability. Basically, the less moving parts, the better off you are. Now, I also know that those roller string trees that you're seeing in the background are moving around, and more than a few of you, or both of you that are watching this, are probably bothered by that. Please rest assured I secured them before I put the rest of the strings on the guitar. Some people will ask about how much extra string you want to put on the tuning peg. And quite honestly, it differs from guitar to person, because the width of the tuning peg, the length of the headstock, the distance between the tuning pegs, there are a lot of things that factor into it. A good rule of thumb is 2 pegs worth, or maybe a peg and a half. It really depends on what you like. The main thing that you want to do, though, if you can, is avoid overlap. That increases your instability. Now, let's bring her up to tune. Buzz is gone. So, as far as tuning stability, we won't really know until the strings get settled. So I guess we'll have to check back in a bit.